Welcome to Impact AI, the podcast that explores the intersection of AI and real world business transformation. I'm your host, John Hodges. Today's guest is someone who's been ahead of the curve in media tech and data for over 2 decades. Kevin Wassong, a visionary business leader, an investor, a marketing pioneer, and the current founder and CEO of Marketing AI. An AI-driven data analytics platform that integrates with your marketing platforms to bring you one comprehensive performance view. Kevin's background in advertising, digital transformation, and his early adoption of data as a strategic lever has helped organizations of all sizes, including small businesses, harness the power of technology to scale effectively and intelligently. Kevin, it's great to have you here. Big treat for us, for sure. Why don't you introduce yourself, share a bit of your journey, like where you were when digital marketing kind of began, and how it's led you um, in your journey to create the marketing AI platform.
So, John, first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Um, my journey actually started out in the mid 90s. I had a roommate in California who's actually one of the lead engineers now at NVIDIA. And he was the first one to start a Macintosh network consulting firm for Apple.
Hmm.
And at the time, no one had done that. He actually was one of the creators of QuickTime as well. And and so I was introduced to the internet really early on. I always loved technology, was always deep into it in terms of what it could do and how it could be applied to solve business problems. But I really dove in when I came back to New York and I pitched a company that most people listening to this won't remember called Prodigy and CompuServe. And at the time, those two companies had merged. I had never seen it. And this is a funny little anecdote. I was working on Little Caesars, and at the time, it was the country's second largest pizza chain behind Pizza Hut. And a franchisee had put up what was called a website. And it literally was a page with his address, his menu, and the Little Caesar icon with the spear and the two pizzas on it. And when he'd stomp the spear on the ground, the two pizzas would flip on the spear and land back down. I was like, this is awesome. This is brilliant. This is what we need to do. And at the time, you had to use dial-up to get to it. But I got an email. I got a phone call from the CEO of Little Caesars who said, "We're sending this guy a cease and desist. We need to take this down." And I was like, "No, no, no, no. You don't understand what this guy has done. He's done you a favor." Because at the time nobody knew what it was. And so that kind of led me on this journey. I dove in, I started Lawn Partners San Francisco office, having pitched and won Sun Microsystems. I launched Java, the software language, with Sun Microsystems and handled the marketing for Sun Microelectronics and then the brand Sun Microsystems. I left to actually build Sotheby's first website and online auction with a company called Radical Media. And then I started J. Walter Thompson's first digital arm in the
Wow.
90s. And at the time, most people didn't understand that this was deep technology that we were building. We built a diamondisforever.com. We built the US Marines first website and their
Wow.
CRM system. We took Unilever online. So we worked with these major clients, helping them bridge the gap between traditional marketing and what was happening with digital. I actually, in a box somewhere upstairs through one of the guys I worked with, I have the first banner ad, first animated banner ad that I think was ever done, which was for Ford Mustang.
Huh.
And it was an animated GIF that rode across the screen. And so, I've always had this passion for applying technology to solve things. And, fast forward, I built the first mobile advertising platform and system for the broadcast industry in the US, which was acquired by a company called Nexstar Media out of Dallas, actually.
Okay.
And that was really phenomenal as well because it showed that small businesses could really compete and could focus on the B. And I say focus on the B because I talk to people all the time, and I said, For the most part, listen, there's a lot of small to medium-sized businesses that want to be small to medium-sized businesses. It's a
Right.
lifestyle business. That's what
Right.
they want. And they want to be a good business. They want to take care of their employees. They want to do those things. And that's phenomenal. The ones that we're focused on in terms of today are the SMBs who are really focused on the B. They want to become a capital B. That's the game plan. How do you go on a growth curve that takes you to that level? And how do you introduce new marketing to your ecosystem so that you can build on success? And
Right.
so there's been nothing more transformational in our lifetime than what we're seeing right now with AI to help marketers actually achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you've kind of touched on it already, but so from spanning to you've done everything advertising, digital innovation in the media industry as well. But what's been, like the through line that's kept the passion going throughout?
Such a great question. And the through line to me is technology and innovation, flat out. What's possible? When I started Digital at JWT, it was a group of one. And by the time I left, it was 220 people and 8 offices in North America.
Hmm.
And the one thing I used to say to the teams all the time was, if you can think of it, it can be done.
Wow.
And part of the problem was thinking of like, what is that business solution? And what does the business need? And how do we apply that in certain ways um, to really positively impact businesses? And I think that there's a lot of in technology, there's a lot of chasing your tail a lot of times, and a lot of getting too far ahead of yourself. What I've tried to do specifically now, and the reason why I decided to build this company now was that I felt that the timing was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone, and I find myself many times apologizing for the name of my company. Marketing.ai, mktg.ai is the domain. And I'm starting to stop doing that. And the reason I apologize is I bought the domain a decade ago.
That's that's crazy. A decade.
So yeah, I literally I bought the domain a decade ago. I met with IBM Watson in 2016 to see if it could be built, and it just couldn't be built. The timing just wasn't right. And so fast forward to the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, and we decided timing's right. With what's happened with commercial grade LLMs and accessibility to the technology, it's a different ballgame right now. So
Yeah,
it's a good place.
absolutely. So, looking now from now in the future, where and through all your experiences, where does media tech and marketing need to be focusing when it comes to AI and data?
So this is this is my fundamental belief. I think marketers are making a tremendous mistake right now. Tremendous mistake. And for many marketers, um, it's something that they may not be able to come back from. And I don't say that as hyperbole. I say that because I'll go back to a really kind of parallel story. I built one of the first consumer fintech companies, and we worked with a company called Urchin. And I don't know if a lot of the people who are on here, if you hear of UTMs, when it comes to tag management,
Hmm.
it's actually Urchin Tag Management. Urchin was the company.
Okay.
And I spent all this time implementing Urchin on our website, which was a publishing website. So we were putting out articles every day. And so we were tagging all of this content to get distribution as a broad publisher. And we would use Urchin as our analytics tool, which would tell us what's getting the most traction, who's reading what, who are the visitors, a lot of phenomenal data.
Right.
And then one afternoon, I get a phone call from someone at Google who says to me, by the way, this was the second time it happened. I get a phone call from somebody at Google who says, I want to let you know that we bought the company Urchin. And I know that you implemented that and went live a couple of weeks ago. I said, you know what? That really kind of stinks. And I spent a lot of money. And they said, well, we're going to cut you a check for everything that you spent implementing Urchin.
Wow.
what that told me is, and as most people who are in our business know, is if it's free, you're the product.
Oh,
And that was it. That was my understanding. And that became Google Analytics. The first time that that happened was when I built digital at JWT. We built our own ad serving platform. And so we were the only agency in the world to have our own ad server, primarily for Ford and then Merrill Lynch and then De Beers. And one day I got a phone call from Kevin Ryan, who was the CEO of DoubleClick, telling me, hey, we've bought your ad serving platform. There was a technology that we used as the backbone, and they bought it. He said, so now you're with DoubleClick. Once again, you're the product. The reason I tell you both these stories is that marketers are giving away their data.
hmm.
What most people don't realize about commercial LLMs and what's happened is that I don't believe it was the intent of commercial grade LLMs to be out right now publicly. I don't believe that what we are seeing in terms of Grok and Gemini, Anthropic, Perplexity, all of these OpenAI, ChatGPT, all of these solutions were not intended to be public.
Okay.
They all ran in the background. So if you talk to anybody in Google's world, Google had Gemini a decade ago. It isn't new for Google. And Google has openly been reading the internet for 25 years,
Hmm.
unfettered, essentially crawling the internet through search. And everybody's been doing the work for Google to make their product, Gemini, smarter running in the background.
Wow.
Same time, you have OpenAI that's come along. And most people don't know that OpenAI was founded in 2015. And for 7, 8 years, OpenAI was literally reading the internet
Hmm.
and looking at images and reading text and crawling the internet,
Right.
just as Urchin did with tags. And I don't think that they ever intended for that to get out broadly until one day, and I kind of say it's an Elon Musk moment where he was frustrated with OpenAI saying that they wanted to become a private company, and he kind of outed what OpenAI was, and that opened the floodgate to all of these LLMs that actually had been running in the background quietly to
Yeah.
become public. So I kind of call it the AI outing in many.
Right.
So now we're at this point in time where you have this incredible technology, incredibly powerful technology, but as a marketer, you've fed the machine unknowingly
Hmm.
for the last decade plus with your information. So when you talk about, and John, we were talking, I think, before hopping on here about leveling the playing field for SMBs,
Right.
for them to be competitive. The reality is the LLMs have been trained on the top marketers' marketing,
Yeah.
just as they've been trained on the smallest marketers' marketing. The LLMs have completely leveled the playing field for marketers. So there's nothing that stops me from creating Kevin's brand X and competing against the biggest brand in the world
Right.
using information insights, creative generation that they have the same access to. There's no difference in terms of the access that they have versus the access that you have as a small to medium-sized business. So what I tell marketers today who are starting a brand or building a brand is you'll hear a lot of this. You're going to hear a lot about the walled garden over the course of the next
Hmm.
2 months, 3 months, 10 months, 2 years, beyond.
Okay.
This notion of the walled garden, which many people know in marketing, for example, Meta is a walled garden. You have to log in. The data is contained within Meta, or so you think, even though it's used outside of that in many ways. But it is a walled garden. They control the data. They control the information. They control the targeting. In TikTok, if you do ads in TikTok, you know that they auto optimize for targeting. They go out there and they find your audience and they do it. That is a walled garden. As a marketer, what you need to do is you need to protect your assets. And your assets, your data, is absolutely critical. And what most marketers don't convert into data in their thinking is the creative itself. So the creative is as much a piece of data as was their media plan, their media targeting, their audience data, whatever that's appended with from any data platforms. All of that is data. And that data needs to be owned, controlled, protected by the company, the marketer,
Wow.
so that they can build on top of it, learn on top of it, and maintain some level of, I'll call it not exclusivity, but a definition that's unique to them. That's brand. I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Right.
That's what a brand is. It's distinctive to you. And you're going to see what you're going to see, especially with the fact that search is dying primarily because of LLMs. So traditional search marketing is going to go the way of the dodo, is actually, to me, going to bring a resurgence back to more brand marketing,
Hmm.
building a story and a narrative that connects consumers to your marketing. So I just give you an incredibly long-winded answer to that question.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you did though, because I've got a list of questions here, and one of them was, and I'll just skip to it, is data privacy, trust, and how I don't know, how do you educate, I guess, smaller businesses in all this? How do they approach all that?
So there's two questions in that one question. Data privacy and trust to me are somewhat mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Um, First of all, data privacy is, well, I'm going to say over 20 years ago, I saw an article that said the death of privacy, get over it. That was the headline. And I do believe, like, if you think that that you can be private as
Yeah.
a marketer or whatever it is, don't fool yourself. Sorry, it's out
Right.
there.
All right.
You already did it. And one of my favorite stories was I was asked to lecture up at Syracuse at the Newhouse School, and there were about 100 kids in the room. And this was 1998. And no, sorry, 2006. And it was really the early stages of Facebook, the
Mm,
Facebook at the
mm,
time. There were
mhm.
100 kids in the room, and I said, "How many here have a Facebook account?" And they all raised their hand. I said, "How many of you have funny things on your Facebook account?" And three-quarters raised their hand. And I said, "How many of you have something really embarrassing on your Facebook account?" And I'm going to say like seven, eight kids raised their hand. I said, "And how many of you know the first place that an employer goes when they're looking to hire you is your Facebook account?" And six of the eight got up to run out of the room, and I yelled, "You can't erase it.
Ah,
It's there. Sorry, it's done."
yeah,
And this is what I'm talking about from a marketing perspective in terms of the technology and data privacy is that if you don't start building your data strategy, your data mart, your aggregation of your assets, and again, I go back to creative is the most important piece of data that a marketer can put out there because that's what the consumer sees.
mm,
Everyone is focused on the impression. Everyone's focused on should I use this platform or that platform, and what are my conversion metrics, and my CTR and CPM and whatever those metrics are. But yeah, those are important. But the thing that the consumer sees is the most important thing.
right,
Period. What they see, what they hear, what they touch, what they feel, those are the most important things. And what marketers aren't doing is they're not capturing that in a data structure that allows them to control that longer term. So, the data privacy thing is absolutely critical from a strategy perspective to understand what's out there. And the sooner that you take control and get your arms around that in a way that allows you to build on top of it and evolve your marketing, the better off you're going to be. So, that's the data strategy side. The trust side, to me, is something a bit different. Trust is earned. And trust
yeah,
is earned over time. Um, and, I think we are living in an age where trust absolutely runs at a premium, where trust is questioned every single day. I think we're living through a really challenging time right now, especially with Gen AI, to know whether something is real or not.
right,
You know, um, Somebody posted something on LinkedIn. The CEO of astronomer, the Coldplay incident that happened
Sure.
last week.
Yeah.
And they posted a letter that was supposedly from the CEO of
Right.
Astronomer.
Right.
And I wrote a comment, and I knew the person who posted it. I wrote a comment that I said, look, I don't even know if this is real
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
And he wrote a comment back saying, "Are you seriously questioning whether the video of the CEO of Astronomer was real?" I said, "No, no, I'm not questioning the video being real. What I'm questioning is
The
this
letter.
letter that's an apology letter and all the other things that have formed in the internet around it and have become memes, that's where the erosion of trust comes from. The other thing that I fundamentally believe in, which I talk to marketers about all the time and I talk to the industry, is that anonymity is the enemy of trust.
Mm.
And I have said that to marketers forever. Anonymity is the enemy of trust because people hide behind a handle, a name,
Right.
a meme, something that you don't know who it is. And I can guarantee you that most of the people on the internet would not say what they say if
Right.
you knew it was them saying it.
Right.
And so, how does that tie back to marketers? You know who's saying it. So you better be thoughtful about what you put out there and what's being said about your product, your service, your brand, your business. You need to manage and curate that
Hmm.
like you've never done it before, better than you've ever done it before. And you better not allow that to be hijacked in any way. And there'll be moments where it's hijacked and you have to be prepared to address that.
Hmm.
But this goes back to understanding that creative is the most important data point that you could possibly have in that arsenal. And that's that foundation of trust. What you say about your business and brand and what connects a consumer to who and what you are, that's where you build the trust. And then obviously your product and service has to live up to your promise. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, switching gears just a little bit, from your perspective, what do you think some of the biggest data challenges that small businesses face? Like, how can AI help overcome those challenges?
Um, management of data, synthesis of data, extraction of insights, more of the extraction of insights. There are phenomenal tools that allow you to extract insights from your data.
Hmm.
So if you think about a lot of what's being talked about in AI today, and how data is structured, unstructured data, being able to make sense of unstructured data, these are things that AI can be incredibly helpful with. It's being applied though in silos, which is awesome. As a matter of fact, small businesses today, and Meta and Google in particular are really catering to small businesses. If you were following the Cannes Advertising Festival, both of them going into it and at it were saying, "Oh, just give us your money. We'll develop your ads and we'll deliver results."
Yeah.
Sounds good, but there's a real danger in that because it's their channel and now you're beholden to them in terms of getting you results for your brand. I call a lot of brands today the disposable brand, meaning people will spin up brands. They'll spend money on performance marketing, just in Meta, Google primarily, and then they'll see if it gains traction and then they'll expand beyond that. What marketers today really need to do is be aware of all of those channels, understand what's happening and what's being said to consumers about their business and brand in those channels. And that's where AI can really help. It
Yeah.
can help them get their arms around that information so that they have a higher level of visibility. They have an archive of what they've done, and they're able to garner insights from what's being put out there and how consumers are responding to it.
Right. I get that. So, let's see here. So, what are some practical, like low barrier ways a small business owner can start using AI tools for smarter decisions? I mean, we've kind of hit all over this already, but
So, well, first of all, from a creative perspective for a small business owner, There are phenomenal tools out there. I mean, first of
Right.
all, OpenAI and ChatGPT, spend the $22
Right.
and get on it. Pay for the version of AI. And different LLMs do different things. So that's something that marketers and small businesses need to be aware of. Spend the money, and it's not a lot of money. So pay for Anthropic, pay for OpenAI, pay for Gemini, pay for Grok. Just try it and play around with it. And
Yeah.
here's how you play around with it in different ways. One is obviously generation of content. So when you're talking about organic social posts, things of that nature, it's phenomenal in terms of helping you generate ideas that you can then take and build on, and it just speeds the process. But you also have to be very cognizant of what it's putting out. In other words, don't just trust blindly what it says, what it does. You have to validate a lot of things, and you also have to do some work behind it. When it comes to looking at your data, at your marketing data and analyzing that, there are certainly tools out there that are allowing you to make better use of certain platforms. So for example, well, to be honest with you, one of my favorites, it's kind of crazy, is Wix,
Hmm.
for small businesses. Shopify, Squarespace, these platforms for small businesses have built really phenomenal tool sets as well as the ability to plug in. It's a good starting point. It's not the end point. If you're going to grow your business to a really meaningful size, um, I would say it's a great starting point. But the tool sets that they have and the AI that they're using today, not only from an analytics perspective, but from a marketing perspective, are incredibly intuitive and incredibly useful. So, the best advice I give to any marketer today is that we are still in the first inning of this. And
Awesome.
you need to start playing around with these things.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to use it, and it's not expensive. It's not a
Right.
lot of money at this stage,
Yeah.
In parallel with that, I really think you need to be thoughtful as a marketer about how you're setting up your data structure from the get-go. And when I say data structure, there's different components to it. Number one is if you're building a consumer database that you're going to use for CRM going forward,
Hmm.
well, make sure you vet the right partners, that you have trusted partners. If you need to make the investment in that, make the investment in that. And make sure that you control and own all of that data and that that data isn't being used to inform a broader model. So make sure that you're using it for yourself. You can query LLMs with certain data sets to play around with these things again, but I fundamentally believe when it comes to that, you need to control that. It needs to be within your environment, and there's great platforms out there to do it. The second one is the marketing data. And most marketers, what they're doing is they're reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. Every
Right.
time they work with a marketing partner, it's like they never did this before. To me, the poster child for that is Peloton. Peloton was a phenomenal company. It's a phenomenal brand, but they've also gone through four chief marketing officers in less than 5 years. They just
Hmm.
onboarded a new chief marketing officer. Every time they bring a chief marketing officer in, it's like they're starting over again.
Right.
It's not like they're starting over again. They're starting over again. And that to me is a real flaw in terms of marketing as a whole. You can't be starting over again. Marketing is evolutionary, not revolutionary.
Okay.
So that's the thought process that people have to have. I think most people who run businesses think I can be revolutionary. I'm going to reinvent my marketing. And it's like, no, start capturing the information from your marketing in an
Right.
organized structure, in a taxonomy that you can build on. You can understand that this worked at this period of time, this didn't work at this period of time, so that you don't repeat the mistakes of the past and you build on success in the future.
Yeah.
And then the last one is really building the archive of that creative data. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're only doing organic as a small business, you decide I don't have budgets to spend on media. I'm going to do organic. Well, organic, if you think about the bigger marketing organizations, we've always talked about A/B testing. And as a matter of fact, if you're building a website, you do A/B testing of pages, things like that. there really isn't a need in my mind to do A/B testing anymore because you're constantly running real-time scenarios. So if you're creating organic content, what you need to focus on is like what's building velocity, what's resonating with my
Hmm.
audience that I'm
Right.
trying to reach. And you need to be able to recognize those signs in as close to real time as possible, not on any specific platform, but across the entire marketing ecosystem. And a prime example, well, I'll give you an example. So I know many marketers who've run organic posts or an influencer has done a post for them. And that person's touched on something psychological for a consumer that really resonates from a creative perspective. What marketers are missing today is the ability to build on that velocity fast across all the touch points. And let's say you're a small regional retailer in Dallas. You maybe have, let's say you have three stores. You're a med spa. So you have three stores, and somebody does a influencer or organic post after they've had some services at your med spa, and all of a sudden it just takes off. What I see happening all the time is marketers missing on building on that opportunity. That influencer or person touched on some nerve. Now, how do you take that and expand it across everything that you do and build on it and evolve your marketing? That's where AI can really be helpful in understanding those types of patterns, what's happening, and you can start to blow things out more broadly.
Right. Okay. So, looking at the time, this will be our last question, but it's a fun question. So, can you share with us a story that you've experienced, so like a compelling example um, from some of your work where AI is just kind of unlocked like a whole nother level and just taken off for a business?
So, uh, well, I'll start with two, which actually are relatively simple, but go back to what I was just talking about. The first one is being able to analyze large amounts of data,
Right.
including the creative. We were sitting with a client. We were up in Boston. We came back to New York, and a few days later, the client texted me a picture of an ad that was running in their organic Instagram feed. And the client had never seen it before, and it was getting traction.
Hmm.
And said, "Hey, can you find what this is or where this is and where else it is?" And so we were able to use the AI to analyze all the channels that they were running in at that period of time and pull up the exact asset that was running across multiple channels, show them where it was running, how it was performing, when it started running. And those were things that they otherwise didn't have the visibility into. And what that did for them in particular is it showed them that, okay, I can use AI to detect certain things that I otherwise wouldn't have been aware of. That's a very simplistic use case.
Right.
Other example was a marketer who, we use AI, for example, to be able to go through, analyze all the creative, find what's working best, see what's working best by the amount of money being spent on it, but also see what's working worst by what's being spent and being spent again. So we found we had a client in particular that was spending multiple five figures on an ad that was underperforming its baseline KPIs, and they didn't know it. They
Hmm.
weren't aware of it. So they were able to instantly see that in real time, that they all of a sudden had this drop off
Yeah.
of performance on those particular ads. And they were able to go in and rectify it and fix that in near real time. The third one, which is one of my more favorites, is that we all know as marketers that we're not just using one channel. We're not just using Meta or Google or a digital channel, Trade Desk, TikTok, whatever it is. Any marketer is also using non-traditional or non-digital channels, traditional channels, print,
Hmm.
email, mail, television. I mean, there's a reason why Nexstar Broadcasting out of Dallas is still a multi-billion dollar company. Guess what? People still buy TV ads.
Right.
Those things still run. How do you recognize when something is gaining velocity? And so, with a client that we have in California, we got a call from their general agency in New York who said, "You know what? I just want to tell you, we love what you guys are doing because we logged into the platform and we could see that a certain message, a certain kind of creative was really resonating and building velocity in California in this market. So we wrote radio scripts on Friday. So this was on a Friday. We wrote radio scripts that day for the same message, and we sent it out to all the local radio stations in LA so that the radio stations could do on-air live reads that supported the messaging that was really resonating in digital.
Huh.
That to me is the kind of action that is absolutely priceless.
Right.
Being able to build that compounding effect in your marketing and understand that when X happens, I can make it X plus. I can do this, and all of a sudden, you really start to see the compounding effect, positive effect from a marketing perspective. All of those insights, the three that I just named, were all unlocked because AI is able to go in and synthesize so much data in near real time that a human could otherwise never do.
Right.
So,
Fantastic. Hmm. Excellent. I can't wait to use your explanation because you explained it way better than I could for sure.
well, John, you know that the last thing to that question is we turned it on in trial for a retailer that has 1,100 stores, locations in the US, not a SMB. And we just turned on their Meta instance just to analyze it. And their new CMO, was like, "Hey, this is great. I can see a lot of our creative. How many creative assets do we have? How many creative assets do you think an 1,100 store retailer had in Meta? Just in Meta? 5
Um,
million.
whoa.
5 million assets." This goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of managing that
Yeah.
data,
Right.
those assets.
Right.
No human on earth can do
No.
the analysis of that creative and the correlations between strategy X, targeting X, and this, and here's what worked and what didn't work. We
Yeah.
were able to look at that, see what's happening, and that to me is a huge opportunity for even small marketers who have been using these platforms for periods of time to start to reel in that control, understand what's working, not working, and really move forward more aggressively.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, that sums it up right there. The gist of the whole conversation. So, okay, excellent. We'll wrap it up with that. It's been truly insightful for sure. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your vision with us. So, for small business leaders listening, the message is clear. Data and AI are no longer tools for just the big players. They're keys to leveling the playing field. If you'd like to learn more about Kevin and his work with marketing AI, where's the best place to find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's an easy place to find me.
Yep.
But I also would say just take a look at our website, mktg.ai. You can see everything is there. We're transparent in terms of how things work, how the contracts are set up, and the value that we believe we bring to marketers. We're a little more than a year into our technology being in market with phenomenal clients. And we're excited to work with SMBs, and we're excited to work with SMBs that are really interested in becoming Bs.
Yeah, there you go. Love it. Okay. Well, folks, thanks for listening to Impact AI. Until the next time, stay curious, stay driven, and keep making an impact. Thank you very much.